an astonishing 20 Grand Slam titles, but loved all over the world, our champion for 2018, Roger Federer.
10th French Open title, Rafael Nadal.
For Rafa in Rome on the record-breaking 34th Masters 1000.
Have you ever thought how difficult it must have been for all the players who were in their prime during the 2003 to 2011 period, when tennis was absolutely dominated by only two guys? Throughout that period of time, there were some incredible players who were expected to achieve some very big things in the sport. Some of them managed to have an impact, while some others were totally impeded. In any case, all of them were directly affected by the presence of Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, who at that moment were almost unbeatable. If one had the chance of beating one of them, then most likely he would also have to beat the other one of them en route to a big title. Absolutely insane. While as already mentioned, there are many players whose careers have been diluted by these two. There are some who hurt more, because in any other era, they would have been absolutely capable of snatching multiple big titles, but they were prevented from doing so. Andy Roddick, a former world number 1 and Grand Slam champion back in 2003, is regarded as the last great player from the United States of America. Even though the US currently has a generation of very good players, none of them has accomplished what Andy accomplished already over 20 years ago. Despite having had a great career and winning 32 titles, including a Grand Slam at the 2003 US Open and 5 Masters 1000, he would have been able to achieve a lot more if it wasn't for one man, Roger Federer. Roddick reached 5 Grand Slam finals throughout his career, of which he only won one, against Juan Carlos Ferrero, who he beat in 3 sets. The other 4, which he lost, were against the same player, the Swiss maestro. In 2004 and 2005, he made the decisive match at Wimbledon, on grass, a surface that fit his great serve and attacking game very well. However, that coincided with the start of Federer's dominance at the All England Lawn Tennis Club. Roddick lost both matches in 4 and 3 sets respectively. The following year, the pair met again in the decisive match at Flushing Meadows. That time out, Roger beat Roddick at his home in 4 sets. Still, the worst one was yet to come. In 2009, Roddick reached his 3rd Wimbledon final. Unfortunately for him, it was Roger waiting for him in that match again. The result? Roger won 16-14 in the final set. As you might expect, it was an extremely tight match, which could have gone to any of the two sides. The key moment was most likely Andy's 6-2 lead in the 2nd set tiebreak, which he ended up losing by 8-6. Had he won that one, he would have been 2 sets to love up, and who knows what would have happened. At the end of his career, the head-to-head against Roger ended 21-3 in favor of the Swiss. Lleyton Hewitt is an Australian tennis player that I assure you was enjoying his time on tour in the early 2000s. He entered the global stage in Adelaide, his home city, in 1998, when he won his first ATP title there at the age of 16. Undoubtedly, he was an incredible talent on the making and one of the most exciting rising stars. It did not take him long to break into the top 10 for the first time in his career, which he did towards the end of the 2000 season. Between 2001 and 2002, he won 12 titles, including 2 Grand Slams and 2 Masters Cups, now ATP Finals. His 2 Grand Slams were in New York in 2001 and at Wimbledon in 2002. However, around 2003, a certain Roger Federer came into the stage and became a nightmare for Lleyton Hewitt. Even though Hewitt managed to win 1/3 of the matches the pair played, Federer beat Hewitt in some very important matches that could have changed his career. For example, at the 2004 US Open Final, which was the first one Hewitt lost in his career, after having won his previous 2. A few years later, Rafa Nadal appeared, but he did not have the chance to play Hewitt as much as Roger did. He played him 11 times and won 7 of those. Still, hear these numbers, because they tell the story. If you look at the titles that Hewitt won in his career, he won 18 of the 30 he finished his career with between 1998 and 2002. Since Federer became a force to be reckoned with, his quest for titles became more difficult, and that was even worse when Nadal appeared. Since 2002, he only won more than 1 title in a single season 3 times, the same amount of times he did between 2000 and 2002 in 3 consecutive seasons. Therefore, if anyone ever argues that Federer and Nadal did not have an impact on Hewitt's career, you now have arguments to let them know they are wrong. Characterized by his incredible baseline consistency and great footwork, Nikolay Davydenko became a player nobody wanted to face in the 2000s and early 2010s. His flat ground strokes and aggressive return game, together with his mental toughness, made him a very tricky player to play against. At the most important stage of all, the Grand Slam, the Russian player reached the last four on 4 occasions between 2005 and 2007. You will not be surprised if I tell you that Roger Federer defeated him on 3 of those 4 occasions, will you? At the 2006 US Open, as well as the 2007 French Open and US Open, the pair met in the semifinals, and Davydenko was not able to win a single set from the Swiss. The other semifinal he played was indeed before these 3, in 2005 in Paris too. That time out, he managed to win a few sets but still lost in 5 to Mariano Puerta. After hearing what you just heard, I'm sure you will not be surprised when I tell you that the head-to-head between Davydenko and Federer was 19-2 in favor of Roger. Still, he managed to win some big tournaments, such as the ATP Finals in 2009 and 2 Masters, 1,000 titles in Paris 2006 and Miami 2008, where he beat none other than Rafael Nadal in the final. Impressively, Davydenko is one of the few players who can say they have a positive record against the Spaniard. Nadal beat him 5 times, while he beat the Spaniard 6 times, mostly on hard courts. Davydenko reached a career high ranking of number 3 in the world in 2006. Guess behind who? Yes, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. Furthermore, he won 21 ATP titles before he officially retired at the end of 2014. Another consistent top 10 player over the late 2000s and early 2010s, Tomas Berdych from the Czech Republic, was another player who struggled massively against Nadal and Federer. You can look at the situation in 2 different ways. He was either lucky to share the tour with these 2 beasts in what was a unique moment in the history of tennis, or incredibly unlucky to have his prime at the same time the other 2 had theirs. Ultimately, his opportunities of winning big titles absolutely decreased, as it meant having to beat at least one of these 2, if not both of them. Berdych's career ended with 13 ATP titles, one of which is a Masters 1000, obtained in Paris 2005. In addition to that, he recorded 7 Grand Slam semifinals, of which he was able to win only 1 at Wimbledon 2010. That might have been one of the best tournaments of his career, as he managed to beat Federer in the quarterfinals and Djokovic in the semifinals. However, the other big name was waiting for him in the final, Rafael Nadal. In spite of the effort, he lost in straight sets to the Spaniard, who lifted his 2nd Wimbledon title. Throughout his career, the Czech managed to win a few matches against both Roger and Rafa, but his head-to-head record against both is heavily in favor of the big 2. Roger won 20 out of 26 times, and Rafa 20 out of 24. One last player whose career was definitely affected by the existence of Roger and Rafa is the Frenchman Joe-Wilfried Tsonga. A very charismatic player who possessed a very powerful game, Tsonga was incredibly talented, certainly one of the most talented of his generation. However, just like the ones we mentioned and many more, he had the terrible luck, or privilege depending on how you look at it, to share his best years with Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer in their primes. What is incredibly notorious is that Tsonga gave them both a hard time. He has recorded multiple wins against both of them, in spite of their head-to-head records being negative for him. He won 4 times against Nadal, out of 14 encounters, and 6 times against Federer, out of 18 encounters. Not too bad of a record, huh? Throughout his career, he reached a career-high ranking of number 5 in the world in 2012, which is as far as one could go at that moment, with the Big 4 in the top 4 spots, and won 18 ATP titles, including 2 Masters 1000 events in Paris 2008 and Canada 2014. His career-best Grand Slam result was a final, which he played against Djokovic and lost in Australia 2008. It's absolutely accurate to say that Federer and Nadal's dominance impacted the Frenchman's career and his potential ability to achieve greater success, such as it did to the other players mentioned, and many more. What other players whose careers have been affected so badly by Federer and Nadal can you think of? Let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss any of our future uploads. Stay tuned for a lot of great content coming up. See you on the next one.